Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. These days, there seems to be a lot of interest on Tesla, as you can see in its stock price, and there's a lot of expectation and hype over its Battery Day, which will be held on September 22nd. So in today's video, I wanted to go over what can we expect from that Battery Day. So before we delve into the details, I think we should go over Tesla's ultimate goal. What is its vision? You can easily find that out in Tesla's website. And go to the About Tesla webpage. And it says, Tesla's mission is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. You may think, I already know that. But to think about it, its ultimate goal is to phase out the conventional combustion engine based gasoline engine cars and then substitute all of them with electric vehicles. So to achieve that ultimate goal, Tesla really needs to convince not just minority, not just rich, wealthy, or environmentalist consumers, but to convince majority of consumers. Essentially, it needs to match the car price to its conventional gasoline engine-based rivals. And the major factor that determines the car's price is battery at this point. And if you see the graphs on the left side, what we can see there is a significant drop in the battery cost from $1,000 per kilowatt hour in 2008 all the way down to $200 per kilowatt hour on 2015. And we're really looking forward to reaching $100 per kilowatt hour in a few years. And the reason why that $100 per kilowatt hour is the significant number is because that's the price point where electric vehicle will become economically competitive with gasoline cars. And the interesting point on this Battery Day would be whether Tesla could actually reach that point much earlier than what experts typically expect. So there are several factors that might have helped Tesla to bring down the cost of the battery. And out of many factors, I just wanted to explain in a little more details on 4 factors listed here. So let's start with cathode material change. So if we look at the structure of the lithium-ion batteries, it's largely comprised of cathode, anode, separator, and electrolyte, just like shown on the left image. An anode is usually made out of carbon graphite, while cathode is made out of lithium metal oxide with different compositions. And here, the cathode, as you can see on the right graph, typically takes a majority part of the cost and also determines the energy density, which determines the range or the distance the car can travel with single charge. So one change that Tesla might adopt is the change in cathode materials. So from conventional usage of NMC-based cathode, which is comprised of nickel, manganese, and cobalt, it might switch to LFP-based batteries, which is comprised of lithium-ion and phosphate. And the notable difference here is that we are removing cobalt. And by removing such expensive metal from the composition, this can essentially lower the battery cost And also potentially combined with new technologies, it can have higher charge and discharge rate and longer battery lifetime. The drawback with this change is that it could have lower energy density or maybe shorter distance or range it could travel with single charge. So to complement that, Tesla might switch to prismatic cells from cylindrical cells, or maybe take other options, such as changing the configurations in the battery to change the thickness of the electrodes. Now, there has been rumor that this change might have been possible because of the partnership with Chinese battery maker CATL, as Tesla is producing cars in China. Or there has been other rumor that Tesla has been working on this with its own development team. But anyhow, this is not only good news for future electric vehicle buyers, but also definitely a good news for children who are abused with labor in cobalt mines in Congo. Another factor that I wanted to bring up is Tesla's acquisition of Maxwell Technology in 2019. When this news came out, people mostly talked about Maxwell's supercapacitor technology, which would definitely help with battery charging and discharging. But I want to bring up another technology that Tesla also gained through the acquisition. And that other technology is regarding the battery manufacturing process. So with conventional approach of the manufacturing, there are multiple steps as shown on this diagram. And it starts with the slurry preparation, which is a mixture of the active materials, binders, and conductive agents to form the electrode as the ending point. And also the coating and drying process, which is essentially the application of slurry as a coating, and then going through a long line of drying lines to evaporate all the solvent out. And the drawback of such conventional approach is because of the dry line takes such a long time, it's lowering down the manufacturing throughput, and also it takes significant equipment costs. And also because the solvent itself is toxic, it requires post-processing and recovery, which is also expensive. And the process itself prevents electrode to become thicker, which should essentially make the energy density lower. And this is because if you make the coating thicker, then it essentially requires longer time to dry. And also, when you have a thicker coating and then dry, the film itself would become more non-uniform, which is not ideal. So to resolve these problems, Maxwell came up with solvent-free technology, which they call dry battery electrode, where they don't use the solvents, but use the direct coatings onto the base material, such that all the problems I mentioned earlier would be significantly resolved, and that production capacity would increase, the cost would be reduced, and potentially you could increase the energy density by having a thicker electrode. So another aspect that I wanted to bring up is Tesla's million-mile battery. Now that term may sound unfamiliar, but it is actually the same problem that we face with smartphone use. You might have felt that after a couple years of usage, your smartphone seems to consume the battery much faster, even though what you do on your phone is pretty much the same. You're making same phone calls, you're watching similar amount of video, but it seems like it's draining a lot faster. The truth is not that each task is consuming more energy, but it is just that with a single charge, the amount of energy that battery can hold is continuously degrading throughout multiple charge and discharge cycles and just over time. Now, this might be more of a nuisance problem for smartphone users because these days people typically change to new model every 2 years. But this is actually a bigger problem for electric vehicle consumers because it's relatively challenging to exchange battery to new one because it's a major investment. And this causes range anxiety among consumers because they're afraid of running out of juice of nowhere and getting stranded on the streets. And this is one of the major factors that lowers the secondhand or used car value of electric vehicle compared to its rivals with gasoline engines. So what does million mile battery really mean? It doesn't mean that with a single charge you can travel million miles, but it really means that electric vehicle can travel more than million miles without losing 20% of its battery capacity. So even after traveling million miles, with a single full charge, it should retain at least 80% of the original capacity that it had. It's unclear of how Tesla would achieve this, given that there are so many factors for battery degradation, as shown on the right side. Maybe it could be through material change, or it could be through process change, or maybe with partnership with Professor Jeff Dahn, who is one of the known innovator in lithium-ion battery. Now, if this is achieved, this could open up new possibilities, such as the lease market to thrive and improve the used car value because battery is not going to degrade as much. And combined with self-driving technology, it could open up robot taxi, which would definitely benefit from long mileage. I mean, typically commuters, it will take a while to get to million miles traveling, but for taxis, it might be soon. So they definitely need this technology. And also for one other application that's getting a lot of spotlight these days, along with renewable energy, is whether the electric vehicles could be connected to the grid and serve as the energy storage platform during the peak hours. And for that, battery needs to hold after multiple charge and discharge cycles. Lastly, I want to bring up Tesla's acquisition of Hibar Systems. Hibar Systems, as you can see in the image, specializes in equipment and automation of liquid dispensing and filling systems to fill up the electrolytes at the very end of the manufacturing process. Now, Tesla might have acquired Hibar to increase the productivity and throughput in the electrolyte filling manufacturing. But to understand the ultimate motivation, we need to review the different phases that Tesla took to procure its battery. So initially, when Elon Musk started the company, Tesla partnered with Panasonic, Japanese battery makers, to completely outsource the battery manufacturing to the single company. And in Tesla's Gigafactory, one portion was essentially occupied by Panasonic to manufacture the battery, another portion getting the battery to make the cars. Now on the second phase, now that Tesla is making more cars and expanding its business all around the world, it's outsourcing the battery to multiple companies, including Panasonic, CATL in China, and LG Chem in South Korea. Now, the question is, what will be the next phase that Tesla might announce on its battery day? Coming to think of all the factors I mentioned, which are cathode material change to have cobalt-free cathode, Maxwell technology to have dry battery electrode, and hybrid systems to have more efficient electrolyte filling systems, and also on projects of million-mile battery. Does anything click in your mind with this? I think all these factors, especially Maxwell Technologies' dry electrode and manufacturing process, and also Hybar Systems' automation platform on electrolyte filling, are all telling us that Tesla might start making its own battery and start to achieve that $100 per kilowatt hour price point. Now, if that really becomes true, one might question, is this bad news for all the other battery manufacturers? My answer to this question is not necessarily. If we look at how many electric vehicle cars were sold out of total cars sold globally. In 2019, just last year, it was only 2.5%. And this 2.5% includes not just Tesla, but all the other electric vehicles manufactured from many different companies. So we are long, long away from achieving 100% electric vehicle sales. So now is the time to think about expanding the market share and expanding the pie size that all the battery manufacturers and electric vehicle makers can enjoy. And a sure way to do that is to lower down the battery cost such that eventually the price of the electric vehicle becomes comparable to the cars with gasoline engines. And the fact that Tesla might be able to achieve that $100 per kilowatt hour price point and may go beyond that is actually good news for overall market and consumers to make their change on their purchasing decision. So I'm looking forward to what Tesla would actually announce on its battery day on September 22nd, and whether such innovation could keep the track for its exponential growth in number of cars being delivered. And it's always interesting to see how this conversion from the conventional gasoline-based engine cars towards electric cars are happening. So I'll keep an eye on it and update more news on this as we go. So thank you for watching the video today, and I'll definitely come back with more interesting news. So thank you, and hope you stay safe.